Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network, presented by FanDuel. Joining me is our friend and Texans analyst Garrett Williams, the man behind Texans Stressans. Check him out on YouTube, X, IG, TikTok, wherever you go. Great to catch up with you, Garrett. And are you rested after the bye week? How did you like it this early in the season?
How's it going, Robert? Appreciate you having me on again as always. But yeah, I'm more than rested. Early bye week. As a fan, content creator, article writer, all of the above, it's nice to get a break and have a stress-free weekend of football of watching other teams play. And there's still some Texans angles to watch games. Division opponents or other opponents in the AFC that get a lot of love to kind of root against and see things kind of even out. So I'm rested and I'm ready for the Texans to be back on the field, but it's going to be even a little while longer. Monday night with a late start. So, but I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll talk about Seattle in a few minutes, but let's start off with what's going on with the Texans. Does Cole Popovich need a little more love? And tell me if I'm wrong, Garrett. But number one, he's revitalized Ed Ingram's career. Number two, Titus and Ingram might be one of the best right sides in the NFL. He turned cast-off Jake Andrews into an above-average center, another, guy that he's done a turnaround on. And give him more time with Ursary and Scruggs. You never know. But Garrett, they're ranked 16th in yards per game without Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I think he does. And, obviously, if people watch me on here or on other content, I was a champion for him and for the process of the OC and the way they did the O-line. Like, I'm not a huge fan of how they did it, but, guys like Ed Ingram, Laken Tomlinson, I wanted them to initially be more aggressive, but I said, hey, let's just see how it pans out. It turns out Ed Ingram, especially him, I was kind of, emphasizing, hey, I get that he was bad last year with these stats or whatever, but different environment, different scheme matters. I mean, we're going away from wide zone, which is what you'd imagine he was in Minnesota. And then Cole Popovich, too. Obviously, the initial reaction was, okay, we had the worst O-line last year, and we fire our O-line coach and promote the assistant within. The initial instinct is, okay, well, why would you promote from within from the worst one? But then all the details emerge about, obviously in any business, just because you're, below your boss doesn't mean you can tell him how to do things. There's also the angle of, went wrong. There's also, you hear about the players having respect for him, and he was kind of the impetus for running more gap scheme late in the year last year, which better suit our personnel. So yeah, I think he does. And, I was high on Kaylee. I still am high on Kaylee. I started to, I know a lot of fans when it got 0-3 were rock bottom and saying fire him. I never got to that point. I was, starting to really start to scrutinize him. And I guess Cole Popovich could kind of fall in that boat. But I've been trying to point out too that there's been a common misconception that the O-line is bad. They are not bad. Like you said, 16th, they're right around average, which is what all of us asked for going into the season. I've said, I'm sure most people agree, that all the Texans need to be a legit contender this year is an average O-line. And we already have that. And we're only 4 or 5 weeks in with, all new personnel. It's all 5 new personnel. There's one returning player, but it's Titus Howard, who's playing right tackle, who played mostly guard last year, left guard. And so new OC, new O-line coach, all those things considered, I think it's going pretty well. And yes, Cole Popovich does deserve credit. And you get glimpses of him in these mic'd ups on the sidelines. He has a different mentality. That was a big emphasis in the offseason, changing the mentality of the offensive line. That appears to have changed. The nastiness that D'Amico Ryans talks about. Guys finishing blocks, just having an attitude, being more cohesive, being a unit, sticking up for their quarterback. All those little things that sounded corny are kind of coming to fruition, and I think we're seeing it pay off.
Yeah, there's multiple factors that are happening with what's going on the Texans offense. Everybody wants to get caught up in the offensive line, but think about this for a second. In Stroud's rookie season, his average throw took 3.04 seconds. Last year, a little bit better, but not much, 2.98. So far this year, it's jumped to 2.7 seconds. That's a big jump. In the Ravens game, it was 2.46 seconds. So another huge jump, which led to, guess what, 20% pressure rate. Best of the season. If he can consistently get in the 2.5 range, Garrett, and continue to move up, that's Tom Brady stuff right there. Isn't this one of the more under the radar metrics, both for quarterbacks and in Stroud's development?
A lot goes into that metric too. I mean, this isn't uncommon for any young quarterback. I'm sure if you look at all these young quarterbacks who do good in their first year, you mentioned 3+ seconds his first year, but he won Rookie of the Year. Part of that is the way defenses are playing you. They're not playing, too high shells and making you dink and dunk. You're able to extend plays more and have the big home run shots. But once you show that you can do that, then now they start to respect you more. And the big thing that you see is they force young quarterbacks to have discipline. It's like the hardest thing to do, especially when you're an athlete. Your whole life, you grow up just almost backyard football and just making plays left and right. But, we've seen it, and CJ Stroud has said it repeatedly, and he's slowly gotten better and better. But we've really seen him turn the page the last couple of games. That discipline of taking the quick throw, taking the check down, even, all these positive plays and not going for the home run. But then also it comes with play calling and the coordinator, like giving him actual plays to have quick answers. Like we didn't really see that with Slowick early on with Caley. It felt like we didn't see it either. It was a lot of, two-man concepts down the field, or even on 3rd and short. It was, deep developing routes, just having the awareness. So Caley's also improving. But Caley has, though, and I noticed it from training camp on, I think part of it was last year we didn't have a lot of that quick game, getting the ball out quick. There was not a lot of emphasis on that. Hence, higher pressure rate and longer time to throw. But my observation through mic'd up and practices, even in training camp, it was a concerted effort to say, get the ball out quick, take the quick decision. And that's continued throughout the season. So all those factors. And then the most important is just beating that over and over, that point, hammering it home into the mind of your quarterback, because it's easier said than done. You have to it's like exercising a muscle in your brain, like consistently doing it. You've seen it with Josh Allen. He was a big home run hitter, and he's had to change and evolve and become this dink and dunk guy because of the way defenses evolve. And that's kind of what's unlocked him. So, yes, it's a very important stat, and a lot goes into it.
In part of it, Stroud's got to know when to recognize or how to recognize the blitz and then get rid of it quickly and know when he's got to make that outlet. I mean, those type of plays are the ones that really lower your average because you're getting it out as quickly as possible because the blitz is coming.
Yeah, and so this is tough too. And so this was why I was so high and still so high on this Nick Caley-led offense, which seems to be more, if we want to label it as a certain system, which it's, an amoeba of everything he's done, and he can adapt to whatever it is, but New England Patriots. And I know people get freaked out by it, but I like the philosophy of the New England Patriots offense. It is player-based and player-focused. It empowers the players to make decisions. So now you can always have a right answer based off of this coverage, this defense, this alignment, etc. You have an answer, but the thing is multiple players have to see it the same way and be on the same page. And then a big part of it too is, we kept talking about all offseason. I was, really hyping this up. Stroud getting control, being able to ID the mic in both the pass and the run game, being able to audible, being able to have hot routes. I really do feel like they didn't just give him the keys right off the bat. And so I feel like it's happening more and more, but also too, Stroud has mentioned this is what he's asked for. He did it in high school. He did it in college. You assume that one, he's going to get full control off the jump, and two, that he's going to be his elite self that got him drafted number 2 overall right off the bat. But, one, he didn't get as much as you thought. And two, it's taking him time because this is now his first time to do it in a while. First time in the NFL with these exotic defenses. So there is an adjustment period there. But I really feel like in the Jacksonville game on, it's really taken a corner. You can hear Stroud and D'Amico and Caserio all talk about interviews where he's making these decisions. So, to answer your question or comment there about getting the ball out quick for hot routes, he does get criticism, but it's hard for us fans to tell. But for me watching film and listening to pressers, Stroud has not been perfect, but he's been pretty good. I feel like a lot of issues early on were, and still here and there, are on the backs and tight ends and receivers, either not recognizing hot or not recognizing zone defense and throttling in a window, or, different little nuances like we talked about being empowered by the players. And for me, that should only improve. And you have some young guys like Woody Marks. He's been great, and I'm a big champion of him, but he still has things on tape, in my opinion, where it seems like he messes up. You can even see Stroud's body language after the play, looking at him bro, but then people watch the film oh, Stroud, he held on the ball too long. Yeah, because the guy didn't run the hot route, so. But again, I'm speculating, but I believe it's right. But you have to remember that these things are probably factored in.
Dalton Schultz has been a whipping boy for the fan base. He is 5th currently in the NFL in receptions and 5th in receiving yards per game. I'm talking for tight ends. His blocking looks light years better this year. Is it time, Garrett, for Texans fans to show Dalton Schultz just a little bit more respect?
Man, I knew he was doing better, and this was a big bounce back year so far, but I didn't realize his stats were that good. But yeah, and I think people are. I mean, the tough thing about him is just he still has these moments where he just, I don't know if he does slack or take plays off. It's here and there, but like the effort is what gets people, worked up. And there's plays last year that really stick with people, and a couple here and there. But you are 100% correct. He is playing really well. Like you mentioned, first and foremost, blocking. And this is something that I've called out, like, hey, guys, like we've talked about O-line being bad in wide zone and their skill sets fitting a personnel or a scheme that's more gap scheme, that's downhill physical. I was like, what if it's the same for Dalton Schultz? Maybe if he's not a big finesse space guy, like believe it or not, maybe he's better at, hey, just block that guy in front of you. Turns out he is. I mean, some of his good blocks and pancakes are back on wide zone runs, which we don't run quite as often, but I think that's a part of it. Maybe the guys around him, maybe it's just confidence, maybe it's effort. And then obviously pass catching, like to me, what stands out, like we just talked about, player empowerment, reading a defense, being in the right place, right time, being on the same page as CJ Stroud. Dalton Schultz is the best at that right now. And you can tell that Stroud trusts him. Like, hey, I see that this coverage is like this. This guy should do this. And Schultz does that every time. Like there's been a couple times where Stroud or Schultz have been on not on the same page and, who was, responsible. But like more often than not, when you see them try and, hook up for a pass, it's successful. And that's because Schultz is a veteran. And maybe too, he kind of got away from these little nuances from not having done it in a while. But I will say the one area that he still struggles, maybe he's just not good at this in general, and you should just not try to put him in this position, is when he's out on the edge blocking for screens, particularly like wide receiver screens or bubble passes. To me, it looks like effort, but it's kind of like indecision where he has a guy with cushion rather than, kind of deciding whether to go be aggressive and block him and overcommit or wait. He kind of gets stuck in no man's land and the blocker comes off him and it looks bad on his part. There's been a couple examples like that, but to answer your question, yes, he deserves credit and he's been great, and I would expect him only to improve.
It also helps when you use the guy right. Using him as a pass blocker is not a good idea. You absolutely knew that it would look better if Schultz is more of an outlet and takes the guy with him in the passing game and gets the guy out of the box than having Schultz in the box trying to pass block, which we know is terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And then another thing too is, tight ends projected to be a big part of this offense. Nick Caley, former tight ends coach, likes to run the ball. And you lose Cade Stover, you lose Brevin Jordan, you lose Irv Smith, you lose Jakob Johnson, who's a fullback who can also play the H-back / tight end role. So really now you're down to Dalton Schultz and Harrison Bryant, who you signed off the street or traded for off the street, whichever it was, I forget. Stover was the big guy that was the motion guy. That would be the split action, like on a lot of the inside zone when the ball is snapped. He's the one running across the formation and he's kicking out the opposite defensive end and was doing really good at it. And then you kind of do that same action. Now he's, hitting a defensive tackle on a wham or a trap block. And then, Schultz can kind of stay in line, hand the dirt block on the guy in front of him. And Schultz had to adapt and adjust and now fulfill that role too. And he's doing good at that too. So a lot of credit to him. He adapted and set up to the plate.
According to our friends at FanDuel, the Texans are plus 700 to win the division, basically 7-1. Would you take a flyer on the Texans? And I ask this, Garrett, because the Texans have the 4th toughest remaining schedule, although the Colts actually have the 5th toughest remaining schedule.
Absolutely, easily. I mean, like you mentioned, the Colts, like, I've been pointing out, like, it's early in the season and I get it. Like, we can't help it as fans, but like, we all, every week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5, we all want to declare after each game, each result, who's who and what's what. But like, we really don't know. Like the Texans were 0-3. It looked really bad. But guess what? Rams are a damn good team. Bucks are a damn good team. Jags are a pretty good team. They're not as bad as we thought. And then I get to, we beat up on 2 bad teams in the Titans and the Ravens. But all these other teams that are being lauded and praised, like the Colts, they've also beat up on bad teams, but no one mentions it. So it's a double standard, and it's not being done on both ends. Like, so yes, they deserve credit for being 5-1 and taking care of business. But if we're going to sit there and pick apart our wins, then we should do the same with them, beating the Raiders and the Dolphins and the Titans as well. I mean, they've had a lot of cupcake wins as well. But that being said, you mentioned strength of schedule going forward is different. And now it's a much clearer picture on strength of schedule. Before the season, you have strength of schedule in your mind of what it is based off last year. But every year in the NFL, it changes drastically. Like year over year, it doesn't stay the same. So I feel like it takes fans a while to get off this preconceived notion for all teams, of what they are and who they are. And then it's by the time you catch up to what they are for that year, you've already spent 4 or 5 weeks, having the wrong train of thought. I definitely think they can. They have 2 games left against them. The Texans, to me, that was the worst their offense would look. I mentioned all the factors, new offense, new personnel, still learning things, first-time play caller. And Caley, he's still finding his way. He has made tremendous strides and improvements. So the Texans are only going to get better. And I would much rather have a slow start and a strong finish as opposed to a fast start and a slow finish.
It's worth noting the Colts are number 1 in point differential by a wide margin at plus 78. You mentioned their schedule, of course. The next 3 spots are the next opponents, the Seahawks at plus 49, who are tied with the Lions. So that's 2 and 3. Then the Texans are 4 at plus 47. It is a big gap, relatively speaking, when you look at it, between the Texans and next up, the Broncos in the 5th spot, who are plus 35. And Garrett, you got to go down to the 16th spot to find the next team with a losing record in the top 16, I guess, of the point differential. Yet ESPN has the Texans 20th in their power rankings this week.
We'll take it, though, as fans. Like, it's frustrating. It pisses me off. But, I mean, you would much rather be overlooked than overhyped like we have been in the past. And I really do feel like there's a bit of, emotional, connection there with people judging the Texans because we were a lot of people's darling last year, after the great rookie year from Stroud and D'Amico. We were this big pick, and we kind of fell short of what people thought we would be. And it kind of seemingly carried over the first 3 weeks. But, again, in the moment, people kind of take account of that loss in the moment and declare right then and there whether it was a good loss or a bad loss. And all 3 of those losses against 3 good teams down the last second of each game, even all 3 of those games too, a player that's not on our team anymore, CJ Goddard-Johnson, made critical plays that could have swung the game the other way. That's, again, excuses. I get it. But, regardless, people cash that win as a terrible loss. But then it's too hard to go back now and be like, you know what, maybe that wasn't a bad loss. That was a close loss to a good team. Whereas on the flip side, for example, week 1, Monday night, Ravens-Bills. The Bills beat the Ravens barely in a comeback, and they're the best ever. But turns out the Ravens suck. Even with Lamar Jackson having played, they're not a good team. It is a double standard. And then the Bills play, this Monday night and lose to supposedly a terrible Falcons team and look bad. So, I mean, it's just the way people the psychology of it's kind of funny. So I agree. I mean, I get because the way we're 2 and 3, but yeah, the way you laid it out, the point differential. Yeah, you can say the 2 games that we have more points are from, bad teams, but yeah, the 3 games we lost were single possession games where we fumbled against the Rams in the red zone to go ahead late under 2 minutes, missed a 4th and 10 tackle against Baker Mayfield to finish the game, didn't score from the 1 on 4 tries in that same game. The next game against the Jags played terrible. Offense really moved the ball, 3 turnovers in their red zone in the 4th quarter. I mean, it's just, yeah. But as a Texans fan, we just have to, it's so frustrating. And you see these Jags fans and Titans fans all feeling themselves and talking all this mess. I just kind of let them have their moment because I know it's coming.
Yeah, you want to shut them up, win some games. And I want you fans to let us know, what do you think? Where should the Texans be ranked in the power rankings? If it was up to you, talk to us in the YouTube comments. Also, look for my chat Wednesday night with Rockets analyst Cooper Klein to look at the first 3 preseason games. And as always, tell your friends about our live Texans post games. We're going to be going right after the Seahawks games in the middle of the night. But if you're still up and you got the adrenaline going, just flip over as soon as the game's over. You'll find us on our live tab or listen on your way to work or during your lunch break Tuesday. You'll find it right there. It's on also on your favorite audio app as well. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube with notifications so you can get updates on the live shows. You can see our stuff pop up whenever, and of course all of our content too. All right, Garrett, what is your biggest Texans concern right now? Or is there a particular weakness or red flag that you see?
It's got to be left guard. I mean, the approach Caserio took to approaching the O-line was, a peculiar one. It's somewhat working out. He kind of got bailed out by Ed Ingram being the number 1 overall graded guard in all of football by PFF, which, I was saying let him have a chance to pan out. I didn't think he'd be that good, but hey, I mean, I'm not complaining and not criticizing him for that. But for me, I use deductive reasoning. Okay, the worst part of our team last year was O-line. Okay, the worst part of it was interior O-line, specifically guard, both guard spots, Kenyon Green, Shaq Mason. So we need to address that. And we didn't really get super aggressive in free agency. Kind of took some bargain barrel shopping on Laken Tomlinson, Ed Ingram, signed Cam Robinson as tackle. And I was like, okay, fine. We got the draft. We got plenty of opportunities. Take another tackle and Ursary, who's great. He's been awesome. But then you don't even draft a guard. Like, you got guys just hanging around there that we could have gotten at good places that could have contributed. And there's plenty of rookie guards that are starting now and playing well. Then you see, okay, well, they want to start Titus at right guard. Okay, well, that changes it. Okay, so maybe that was their vision. Then you saw how it shook out. Blake Fisher wasn't doing well. Cam Robinson gets hurt. And then all of a sudden it forces, a change in the lineup. And then Ed Ingram, when he finally gets his chance, balls out. But everything looks pretty solid. Center is average, but Jake Andrews is still, improving, and he's basically a rookie in my eyes. But yeah, Laken Tomlinson's been bad, and now Juice Scruggs has taken his reps, which I think he should has. He's shown that he's better, but he's still not elite. I mean, he can still improve. So depending on how that shakes out, I would say left guard is our biggest problem, but I don't know what you do about it now, currently, to be honest.
So maybe that informs where we're going on the next question, because we're only about 3 weeks from the NFL trade deadline. Are there any positions or players you've thought about targeting?
Typically, there's the mindset that interior offensive linemen aren't readily available on the trade market because teams don't trade them. But the Browns are fire sailing and saying Wyatt Teller and Benito, I Bleav, are available. So you start to think about that. But there's also the element, too, of interior offensive linemen just kind of plug and play in them in a new system, new scheme. It takes time. I mean, there is the continuity and chemistry for an O-line is a big deal. Like, you don't want to just, if Scruggs is doing good, you don't want to, take a flyer or a risk. And then also, too, like, you can do that and it still work, but you're probably going to overpay. To get a rental, you're going to overpay heavily. So my mindset is the one position that we need to address, which could also be a concern to your previous question, but if we were to address in the trade market, would be tight end. Like I mentioned earlier, all the injuries we've had. We basically got 2 tight ends. I know Brendan Bates has came in as a 3rd tight end and done decent, but having a true game-changing tight end to put in there with Dalton Schultz, like David Njoku would be my bucket list. But I know Chig Okonkwo with the Titans, another potential target, I think would be solid as well. So a tight end like that would be of my eye.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Njoku wouldn't just be a rental. I Bleav he's got another year next year with him, and it shouldn't cost you, super capital, as opposed to, if you're going after some guard that, one of the better guards, or a Breece Hall or somebody like that, which I know a lot of fans would like. But Njoku, I would think maybe you could get him for 6th round, maybe a 4th or 5th round or something like that. I know the Texans have some extra picks because of the Tunsil trade as well.
Yeah, and so I don't know exactly. I should know the contract, but that sounds right to me. And of course, all these answers, it goes without saying, it's all relative to what you would give up. I mean, it depends on what the price is. And then, like you pointed out, Breece Hall, I get that he's a big name, but to me, that's all dependent upon Joe Mixon's health, which none of us know. So if we can just say right now and assume, hey, Mixon's out for the year, then yeah, okay, I can see trading for Breece Hall, but also he seems like he would be a little bit heftier of a price tag. And I Bleav he's on the last year of his rookie deal. Is that correct? Breece Hall? So
yeah,
he would be a rental. So, I mean, you don't want to give up high capital for half a year and then now have to go and sign this guy. Or unless you wanted to do it and sign him right away. But, it's hard for me to say based off of Joe Mixon's health. But even then, just to say that Mixon may or may not come back and we roll the dice and don't trade and doesn't come back, to me, Nick Chubb is still underrated. Like, he looks good. and he's getting better game by game. And, obviously Woody Marks had a breakout game against the Titans, and we all expected to see more of him. But Nick Chubb got the lion's share and looked pretty spry in doing so. In between the tackles, making runs, looked explosive, juking, breaking tackles. And he's the type of guy he's that physical runner that Nick Caley and D'Amico want with this offense to physically wear down the defense. Now come third, fourth quarter, like they're not even want to tackle him, and everything's just wide open. So I think him and Woody Marks are a great 1-2 punch. Chubb is an excellent in between the tackles runner. Woody Marks can also do that, but also provides the spark and juice, on the outside with wide zones and tosses and sweeps. And they're both pretty good in pass pro. They started out kind of rough, but they're getting better at pass pro. And then even then too, like I think Jawar Jordan's a guy in the practice squad that if need be, you can bring him up. Damian Pierce is sitting there. I think we should trade him. But yeah, so I could see a Breece Hall trade, but again, it depends on Mixon's health and the price.
Just to clear up something on Breece Hall, you don't give up, as far as I'm concerned, anything higher than a 5th round pick, unless you're getting some assurance from his agent that you can sign him to some sort of an extension. You better, have something under the table ready for that. But I want to ask you about the Texans in a second. But before we get there, I just want to help our listeners potentially worried about your personal data. Delete Me makes it easy, quick, and safe to remove your personal data online at a time when surveillance and data breaches are common enough to make everyone vulnerable. What do data brokers do? Well, your name, contact info, social security number, home address, even info about your family members could all be compiled by data brokers and sold online. But now you can protect your privacy with Delete Me. As someone with an active online presence, privacy, hey, it's really important to me. I've had issues in the past, so I know the hassle. Have you ever been a victim of identity theft, harassment, doxing? If you haven't, you probably know someone who has. Delete Me can help. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for Delete Me. We got a special discount for you. Get 20% off your Delete Me plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/HIT and use the promo code HIT at checkout. The only way to get 20% off, join deleteme.com/HIT and enter code HIT at checkout. That's join deleteme.com/HIT, code HIT. Okay, Garrett. What are your keys for the Texans to beat the Seahawks Monday night?
Yeah, so I've been diving into it a little sooner than what I normally would because of the bye week. I'm not fully done in my research, and I'll have a preview article on my website, HoustonStressans.com. But early on, obviously, this poses to be one of the better run defenses that will play. It's apparent that this offense wants to go through the run. Everything kind of goes from establishing the run and then play action off of that. We saw it in action against the Ravens and Titans. No coincidence. They're two of the worst run defenses. That's a great matchup for us. We're able to run the ball, play action, everything's opened up. It sounds like D'Amico today said that's what they want to do. And so now we're going to have, we'll see who can break through on that, but this is going to be the run game if they can do it. And then if there is resistance in the run game, if Nick Caley can adapt and adjust early on and recognize it and try to find a way to have a quote-unquote run game through the pass game, whether it's screens and quick game. It's all about for them staying on schedule. I know it's the same boring talk, positive yards, staying out of 3rd and longs. And so that'll be a big key. And then on the flip side, obviously Sam Darnold's, continuing to play great ball. Jackson Smith and Jigba's playing really well. He's on the outside now for first time in his career where I think he's better at now. It's no coincidence he's making big plays. So it's going to be contained to big plays on JSN. I think we can stop the run. It's cliche, and it's going to be our keys for pretty much every game, but stopping the run on both sides. And then I will say, though, for us running the ball, I started to dive in today to some advanced stats on NFL Pro. You have to look at things in the right context. You can't just look at a stat and say, oh, they had this high pressure rate, or, oh, they only allow X amount of yards rushing per game. But one, who have they played? Are they any good? And two, who are the type of offenses they've played? And so one thing that kind of stuck out, and I need to dig further to confirm what I'm believing, but I think they've played a lot of wide zone teams early on, and we are a between the tackles team. So they've done good at the run, stopping the run against wide zone teams. And it seems like they don't stack the box very often, and they only rush 4, and they drop back in coverage. And also, too, Mike McDonald is the head coach there, who was the DC at Baltimore a couple years ago. We played him in the playoffs. And then we just played the Ravens in our last game against Zach Orr, who runs the exact same defense. D'Amico said that. This was basically good for us to see all this stuff. So they run a 3-4 and only rush 4 and try and do exotics, but still only bring 4, kind of swap guys around to confuse you. So that was, a good practice test for us. The way you kind of combat all that deceit is just run the ball, right up the middle. And, on paper, it looks scary, but I think we can do it. And then I guess if there's another key, obviously protecting Stroud. I mean, you look at last game for Seattle against the Jaguars, in which they won. They had like a 50% pressure rate. And again, the Jaguars were number 3 going into the game, offensive line pressure rate allowed. So, 4 weeks in, they're declared one of the top O lines, but they didn't play any good pass rushes. They finally played a good pass rush. And also the game script, they had penalties and early down failures, and they were constant 3rd and long. So, it made for a disaster. So I think the initial fear there is, oh my gosh, the Seahawks pass rush is tenacious. But I don't think it's as ferocious as we think. But obviously protecting Stroud, and the way they get pressures is through stunts. So again, communication. You're in Seattle, loud environment. O-line has had struggles here and there, mostly last year, better this year with communication. So communication on O-line, picking up stunts.
Yeah, Seattle's front, you could say, well, it was against Jacksonville, but they got 7 sacks against Jacksonville. I don't remember us getting 7 sacks against Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago. So,
but I would counter that too, though. Like there's a difference between they went into the game knowing who our D-line was. Like, we have an elite D-line. They went in with a concerted effort and game plan to combat that. Like, they didn't, and every team we've played, before we even played the game, our defense is already winning the game. Like, teams are so scared of our front 7, Daniil and Will in particular, as they should be, that they're not even trying to throw the ball deep. They're running quick game screens. That's all they're doing. They're not even trying to throw the ball deep. So you can't even get a pressure if the ball is getting out. Whereas now you see a D-line where, like, oh, we can try to test them, but then, you make them beat you, and they do. So I would combat it with that. And to me, the sacks don't tell the whole story. It's the defense points per game. This defense is elite. They're shutting teams out, man.
You talked about it just there. Texans defense giving up 12.2 points per game. They lead the NFL. That's 3.6 points better than number 2. So that's a pretty wide gap. The Broncos are at number 2. They're 4th, the Texans, in total yards per game, 5th in passing, 7th in rushing. Is this, Garrett, the best defense in the league?
Without a doubt. I mean, people want to look at other stats and sacks and this and that. To me, it's a meaningless point. Like I just alluded to. I mean, I would say the biggest thing is points per game. Like, are you scoring on our defense? That's what matters. No, you are not. So, and even with that too, I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson, who was released for miscommunications, they highlighted 3 plays, potentially more, but 3 plays where he gave up touchdowns himself from miscommunication. 2 of them were in the red zone, so you could say, okay, maybe you hold him to field goals. That's another 8 points less. 1 was against Jacksonville on that 3rd and 8 to Brian Thomas Jr., which we ended up letting him score the next play. So that's 7 points. So that's 8 plus 7, 16, 15 points right there. And then, I'm kind of nitpicking here, but last week against Baltimore, Derrick Henry on the goal line, they let him lay up. First off, they call a offsides on Wilderson Jr. to give them a first down or 2nd and goal, like on the 1, which was bogus. And then they let Derrick Henry lay on a pile for like 3 seconds and not call forward progress. And he never got in, just gave him the pity touchdown because the game's out of hand. So the points per game should be even lower. And I said before the season, this could be a historically great defense. And I think currently it is trending that. So obviously, if it's historically great, it's the best in the league. And this is also considering, too, the offense being one of the worst in the league the first 3 weeks when they're still fighting their way. They weren't playing complementary football. And when they finally played complementary football these past 2 games, yes, I know, against terrible teams, Titans, Ravens, but when they actually got first downs and moved the ball and held onto the ball, we saw game scripts finally where we're on the other side of our offense held onto the ball. We dominated time of possession. Their offense was on the field 70-plus plays, and our defense was on the field for 40-plus plays. I'm sorry, 40 for their offense and our defense and 70 for our offense. But basically, you saw the flip side of that and what the results are. It's 0 and 10 points. So I think they are by far the best defense in the league. I will say, too, because I talk about, who you play matters. The Rams are a top 10 offense. The Bucks are a top 10 offense. The Jags were close to it. And then you can argue Titans and Ravens, but we've played good offenses and held them in check.
Some might say that I'm wearing maybe a little bit H-Town blue. Some of you might say, well, it looks a little bit too much like Titans. I feel like I need to respect the Titans right now because this looks like a great organization. Garrett, it looks like they know exactly what they're doing. I am I'm so happy for the Titans and the Titans fans. Yeah, it's let's just say they're getting what they deserve, Garrett. This is what you deserve.
Yeah, I mean their owner, Amy Adams Strunk. I mean we all know how she is, type of person she is. The whole H Town Blue thing, the history, taking Houston Oilers, all that stuff, and trying to keep it as theirs, even though it has nothing to do with where they're at currently. Whatever, that's fine, but yeah, I mean, even then, too, it's a division rival. Absolute dumpster fire. I'm a big fan of Cam Ward. He actually went to my alma mater, UIW. Very high on him. I thought Callahan might be able to correct things this year with Cam Ward, but it turns out he's just in over his head, trying to do too much, call the plays, and be a head coach. Seems like he can't get a hold of the locker room. I thought the roster, the talent was better than what they produced. So, hey, I'll take it, But yeah, like you said, karma, it's real, man.
What's the latest on Texans Stressans?
I mean, same old, same old. So my website, HoustonStressans.com. That's STRESSANS.com. I usually write a review article of every game and a preview of every game. I haven't done the Ravens yet. I try and mix it up with analytical observations as well. So I'll be working on an article that talks about the Ravens game. And I break down film on my timeline on X, and I kind of embed that into the article where I think that I am super high. I am very irrationally high on this Texans offense and Nick Caley. I've seen a lot of great things on film. He was hired for two reasons. It was two reasons of things that Bobby Slowick couldn't do, and that's why he got fired, because he could not adapt and adjust. Nick Caley, despite the 0-3 start, he has shown steady signs of progress of adapting and adjusting to his personnel and to opponents. To our personnel, that's obviously right off the jump, gap runs, but that's also, hey, you've had injuries, the tight ends, like I've talked about. Now you start to implement British Brooks, who's a big new development, running fullback dives, 2 for first downs. We haven't seen that in forever. Running quarterback sneaks, simple, novel concept that I'm pretty sure you and I have talked about, many fans. Hey, 3rd and short, 4th and short, just freaking sneak the ball. And a big part of that too is D'Amico Ryans is seemingly learned his lesson, and he's also developing and growing. He was too late to the party last year to put his hands on the offense. He relieved duties to Matt Burke. Now he can be more hands-on the offense. And then mic'd up, he's on the sideline saying, hey, sneak the ball right here, and they do it. And so it's like that little extra opinion from a guy who knows football, who's smart, is a big deal. But Caley, we're seeing things like early on, there were trends about, okay, when they're under center, they run, and when they shotgun, they pass. Now he's mixing up looks. Like, the guy is aware of what people see. So, one, that might have been new play caller not noticing he was doing it, still early sample size to really have any trends. But now he's playing off of those. And I'm seeing plays where, hey, we do this, this bootleg where it's a flood concept, and these guys do this, and we run it 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And now the play to Christian Kirk, okay, you run it, he fakes the corner and then breaks back across the field. And so we're showing them things on tape, and he's running stuff off of it. So I've seen a lot of encouraging things. We're running more run-pass options, RPOs, something I've, talked about. That's player empowerment. Where now CJ, when he's handing it off, can see if the quick hitter route over here is good and pull it and hit it. So I've seen a lot of stuff. I'll put that in my article over there with more in depth and film to back it up.
Yeah, I love the play action against the Ravens. I talked about it in the post-game show. And it's going to be interesting to see what Caley does with 15 days to prepare. I mean, this is about as much as you're going to get as an NFL assistant to prepare for another team. So that's going to be interesting. Also want to remind our viewers and listeners that on Thursday, I have scheduled a insider for the Seahawks. We're going to talk about him, about this game, get a little bit more in depth on the matchups and that sort of thing. And before we go, I just want to thank our friends at FanDuel. I want to thank Garrett again. Great insight. Thanks for giving us your time. And I'll just let you finish it off. Blessing or stressing?
Yeah, appreciate it. It's fun as always, but I'm blessing. I mean, obviously, I get it. 0-3, all the criticisms were deserved. I was starting to be critical. Things were really teetering on the edge there of the direction the season was going. But, as we talked about with the division, plus 700, sounds like we both feel pretty optimistic. It's early. It's early in the season. let these other fans from the Colts and the Jags feel like they're doing something. We know who we are. The offense will only continue to ascend, and the better the offense is, the better the defense will be, which is what is scary. So I'm big blessing.
Absolutely. Again, Rockets tomorrow, Texans on Thursday. We'll see you then.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.